Good morning again. I'm just getting the mask off my hand. There we go. Hello. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video, and that'll be online. And our birthday from last week was online, where we celebrated some stories and some just things that have been going on this last year. So check that out online, and hello online as well. Okay, today is like birthday part 2. And if you know me, I like to make special occasions kind of draw out. And so it's our daughter's birthday this week. You know, that's kind of how we do life. And for Christmas, I make that stretch out like 3 or 4 months. Just so you know that about me. That's another story. This morning, birthday part 2, we are going to think about vision. Okay, we're thinking about vision and starting by thinking about vision from a grand scale. Okay, vision is pretty key to all of life. I don't know if you've ever thought about that before. I don't know if that's something that crosses your mind. By vision, I mean a preferred picture of the future. A preferred picture of the future. A dictionary definition for you: the ability to think about or plan the future with imagination or wisdom. I love that. Think and plan for the future with imagination or wisdom. It's having a goal. It's having the end in mind. There's a famous political activist called Helen Keller, and she was partially sighted, but she famously said this, and I love it: there's only one thing worse than being blind. I mean, I don't know what that's like, but she did. That's having sight but no vision. You could put it this way: sight is what you see with your eyes open. Vision is what you see when your eyes are closed and you dream and you think about the future. You'll see vision talked about often in the Bible. Here's one example. Without vision, people cast off restraint. So without vision, cast off restraint. It's essentially saying that without vision in our lives, we can be pretty aimless. We can lack purpose. Without vision, change doesn't seem to happen. Now, I'm not someone who naturally thinks in terms of vision, if I'm honest. I tend to get very stuck in the day-to-day and whatever's going on and whatever's next. And so for me, it's been a real discipline, a real important part of life, learning about vision and putting it into different areas of life. It's a good idea, and this is just, again, personally my experience, to try and have a vision statement or a phrase about most areas of your life. If you can, just to take moments to think about the home, a relationship you're in, parenting, the workplace, and of course, church. Having a vision statement. It doesn't have to be long, it can be short, it can be snappy. In fact, if it's memorable, that is very helpful. I've been watching the Winter Olympics recently. They end today. I don't know if you've been watching them. And I don't know if I like many of the sports, if I'm honest. I don't really get them. I don't know if I like curling. I've watched that for, it seems like, hours. And anyway, we won a gold medal in curling, which is great. So I'm not sure what I think about it, but I am struck by the incredible training regimes that these people have. I was listening the other day about the luge. Is that how you say it? The luge? And I know it looks really scary. It looks proper scary. But if I'm honest, I thought this would be the easy one. Because it's like you run for a second and then you lie down. Job done, all the way there. You're just lying down. I thought that is going to be a straight, maybe that's my sport. And anyway, listening to it, it's like 3 days a week in the weight room, working on your upper body strength. The rest of the week is on the track, learning how to accelerate for 4 years. For 4 years, they live like that. They have an insane diet. Their sleep is monitored. They know everything about the tech. Every part of their life is powered by this strong vision. It's a preferred picture of the future. It's knowing where they're going. And of course, when I talk about vision, I'm talking about action as well and strategy, because vision without that is just a dream. I'm talking about vision that actually changes things. In my mind, Jesus was and is the greatest visionary who ever lived. You see, he has a vision for our lives that is far greater than we could ever dream or imagine. He has a vision for our community and our church that is greater than we could ever think of or dream or imagine. He has a vision for the entire world that is greater than we could ever imagine. And you get glimpses of it as you read through the Bible. It's like a totally transformed way of living, totally transformed world, like renewed, all things new. The end of suffering, the end of pain. The vision is incredible with Jesus. And I just want to hone in and give a small example of Jesus' life, just how he sets vision, how we could think about vision for different areas of our life. And if you have a Bible or a device with the Bible app on, otherwise you end up playing a game, we're heading to Matthew chapter 9. And so if you've got a Bible, grab that. It'll come up on the screen as well. Just a few verses. Matthew chapter 9, this is Jesus speaking. And it says, Jesus went through all the towns and villages, teaching in their synagogues, proclaiming the good news of the kingdom, healing every disease and sickness. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, his followers, "The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into his harvest field." That's just what we're going to look at this morning. Now, right there is actually full of vision, and it's pretty short. It maybe feels a bit simple. But just see what happens there. Firstly, he saw. So vision is about seeing. It's this preferred picture of the future. And hopefully it leads to action. It certainly does here. Jesus, in the next chapter, goes out to sends out his 12 disciples, his followers. And they go on with him to change the world. A couple of thoughts about how Jesus casts vision. Well, firstly, it's motivated by love. Always is with Jesus. It's right at the heart of who he is. We read there, he had compassion on them. And that word compassion, it literally means from the gut. It's to be moved in your inner parts. Which sounds a bit graphic, doesn't it? But it is absolutely gutted, heartbroken. Something has to change. Secondly, Jesus sees what needs to change. That's what vision does. Vision sees a problem or a need and presents a solution. So he sees the problem. He sees that they're harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd, like empty, not knowing where to turn. And finally, Jesus sees the potential. And he says the harvest is plentiful. Harvest is plentiful. Look what could happen if the workers go out, if people partner with God and see his kingdom come. It's going to mean people finding purpose and meaning. It's going to mean experiencing all the things of the kingdom, of joy and freedom from shame and guilt. It's God's rescue plan. And it's amazing. It's transforming society. Jesus says, ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers to the harvest field. It requires this element of work, of action. Something needs to take place. And if you read on and if you follow Jesus, you know it takes sacrifice and it takes time and it takes courage. Change isn't always as quick as we would like. So for us, in the midst of a 2-year pandemic, we can easily see many problems around us. Maybe you're experiencing problems in yourself. There's definitely an increase in relational breakdown and disagreements over a whole range of subjects. There's an increase in poverty, or certainly the gap between rich and poor. There's an increase in stress and anxiety. There's people not connecting with God. There's a lack of hope. There's injustice. I mean, you could just list all the problems. I mean, there's talk of war at the moment. There are people constantly around us, in our workplaces, in our communities, in our homes, even maybe here, where we're designed by God, for God, but feel empty and harassed and helpless. Yet we're to be a family who encourage each other towards vision and action. In all of those arenas that I've talked about, Jesus wants to invite us to be people of vision. So my encouragement, one of them from today, would be just think about the different areas of your life. And as you pray about them, ask God for maybe words, bits of vision, bits of the preferred future. and push into those in aspects of your life. And then, of course, coming back to our birthday theme, God has given us a vision as a church, a picture of the future church that he wants to build here with us as family. It's a long view, and we have a statement that we've held from pretty much the first day as things grow and develop. And I'm passing over to my beautiful wife, Anna.
Brilliant. Oh, lovely. And we can't repeat this enough, actually. And I know that we went through it last week, feels like just yesterday. But I'd love to pop it on the board again and we just run through it, because this is what we are for here with Vineyard 53, and it's what God has given us, and it's something that we've been walking with, this mission statement, this vision statement, for a long time now. And it'd be worth just saying it again. And we've got this long version, we've got a portable version as well, which we'll talk about in a minute and just run through that. But it's really precious to keep this in mind. And we would ask you to as well, that God has called us to establish a growing, regional, biblically based church that exists to passionately pursue Jesus, to be an outward-looking community, and to see transformation throughout the region. We want to see that. And how do we do it? Well, empowered by the Holy Spirit. We aim to serve those in need, to make and equip disciples, to raise up leaders, to plant new churches, and to be a blessing to the wider church family. And so that is like the big suitcase vision statement. But the little portable handbag statement that I like to carry around and that we say all the time is that we're a church on an adventure. We're inviting people into the adventure of following Jesus and into relationship with him. And we're seeking transformation in every part of life. And so that is what you'll continually hear us saying week in, week out. And we do it so that we remember, because I don't know if you're like me, but I am a bit goldfish. I'm part human, but definitely part goldfish. And it goes. And so we have to keep repeating it and remembering what we're doing together. So just going to pause to reflect on those words just quickly before we talk about the specificity, what God is really sort of speaking into in this season. But the first thing is, that we're on an adventure. Following Jesus is an adventure. Adventure by definition requires risk. It requires sort of stepping out of our comfort zones, of partnering with God, pursuing the kingdom, his agenda, rather than our own. And it costs us a bit. But it's exciting, and it's really like living. It's not just existing, And that's what we want, isn't it? It involves being with Jesus and doing the things that he showed us how to do. And it's all in the book, and the more that we read the Bible, the more that we find out how to be on this adventure, how to give it legs. And it's an invitation for all of us. There might be many of us in the room who are kind of just still exploring who Jesus is. He's inviting us into an adventure. It might be that you've known Jesus for years. He is inviting you into the adventure of knowing him more and partnering with him more in these days. And then relationships. So God is very relational. He just is. And he wants us to be a very relational church. Because, church isn't just a Sunday event. And if there's anyone in the room who, has kind of believed that, I just want to disabuse you of that notion that it's just Sunday is what makes that's church. It isn't at all. It is so much more. It's being family. It's kind of belong to each other in the highs and the lows, whatever we're going through. Because we're made in the image and the likeness of God, and God is at core community. He is Father, he is Son, he is Holy Spirit. And we're designed to live in relationship with him and with others. And so we're just, again, sensing, and I'll talk more about this in a minute, but that God is really putting his finger on this. He's inviting us to be very intentional about this aspect of our life together, being relational. And transformation. So God is asking us to be transformed. He's asking us to be a transformed community so that we can bring transformation. That's how it works. It starts with us and it moves out and it has momentum and it's exciting. Because people who've been so changed by the love of God, by the saving work of Jesus, by the friendship of the Holy Spirit, can't help but see the culture change in the people around them, the places where they work and live. And we want that. We want to see this region come to life in a new way because we're living for a cause beyond ourselves. And so with all that in mind, as we look ahead to 2022, and it's exciting to be doing that because it feels like, there's momentum, there's forward motion, things are changing. And, as John mentioned earlier, it feels like the COVID thing, obviously it's still with us, but we're changing with it and we're trying to find a way to live through it and all of that. But what's God got for us? What's he got for us in 2022? We can't do everything, but we can do some things and we want to do them really, really well. So the first thing that we feel like God is really inviting us into in this season is he's asking us to contend for community. Contending for community. I love that word. It's a fighting word. It's let's really go for this word. And I think that's right. We need to contend for community because right now, for many reasons, politics, COVID, the way we're adjusting and have adjusted to doing life in quite a solitary way, building community and building family is not easy. It's not quick. It's not just a click of the fingers, we're all best friends. We're having to be very intentional about it. And for some people, it's become really hard, I would say. Something we have to fight for, something we have to sort of, really, really choose. But the gift of community, if we can just focus on that, when we become part of a community like this, where there are people from all different backgrounds and worldviews and political preferences and different understandings of what makes, the world tick. When we're doing life together, when we're doing this journey of following Jesus together, something beautiful happens. It's an opportunity for us to grow, as we learn to love people who are not like us. Where we find that the Spirit of God is at work when we do that. And we're formed as a family as we push into that, however difficult it might feel at the start. It is a good thing. And also, I just want to reflect on the fact that Jesus says, doesn't he, that that'll be how the world knows that we're his disciples, that we belong to him, how we love each other, how we choose each other, how we commit to each other in community. That's how people will get it. That's how they'll know. And that's why it's really important, because we long to be the kind of community that people struggle to make sense of, because they don't see it anywhere else on the planet. That's what it really means to be church, doesn't it? To be a community marked out by grace and love. And it will take contending for. It will, and because we're talking about depth of community here, we're talking about the fact that discipleship is done best in community. Some of us have been trying to do it on our own for a long time, trying to follow Jesus over this last 2 years, pretty much on our own, and it's hard, isn't it? But together, so much more and so much more quickly can be done. There we go. Anyway, so very specifically, what is God inviting us into? What is he inviting us to consider doing to see this happen? Well, the first thing, and if you're making notes, please do make a note of this, because this is something that we really feel like is an invitation from Jesus, is that we are going to be inviting people to come back into living rooms and kitchens and cafes. We are going to be inviting people back. We've not been able to do this for a while, and it's not surprising, is it? Therefore, that the polarization has gone up at a societal level. During this last year, we've not been able to meet together round a table. We've not been able to do that. We've not been able to practice hospitality in the traditional form, opening up our homes, inviting people to dinner, going out for dinner, creating space around a table to really invest in each other and develop those deep connections where God can move and he can change us. Well, friends, I'm really excited to say that things are changing. Things are changing, and we can now do that more and more. And I'm convinced, we're convinced as a team that it's in the small and ordinary activities of one meal at a time, one cup of tea at a time, one conversation at a time, one apology at a time, one hug at a time, that, that this will happen, that we'll be contending for community and amazing things will be possible. Because in the New Testament, you'll notice something fascinating. Households are where the church starts. The opening of doors, the welcoming in. That's where church happens. And you'll read about the church plants that Paul saw happen. And he turns up in a new city and he goes to someone's house and they eat together and the Lord comes. And he comes in power and he changes people. And they meet with him. And we're excited for this. And it sounds so simple. And yet, for some reason, it's become so hard to do. So we're going to contend for this, friends. We really are. And, our home isn't simply, and the Lord's really been speaking to me about this in a very personal way. It's not simply a place to retreat from the world. That's not what our home is for. Our home, rather, is a place to invite people into in order to help point them in the way of Jesus. Yeah, and that's a change, isn't it? And that will great for some people. I know it's hard and it's a journey and we're on it together, but let's go for it. And it's one of the reasons we're so excited about this, the table initiative with the young adults tonight, and other expressions like Soup Sunday. Let's get round a table. Let's really do community. Let's invite people in. Okay, so that's the first thing. And the second thing in this invitation to contend for community is small groups. Small groups are key, and most of us are a part of small groups. If you're not part of a small group, massive, massive invitation to you to get stuck in this season. And we want to continue to train and develop and build community in small groups. We've added some longer-term small groups to our selection. We obviously have still some groups that are going through courses or books that are shorter term, but we're wanting to get back to basics. We're wanting to get back to this simple and strong focus of praying for each other, of ministering to each other, of worshipping, and being family, being community. And we were chatting to someone who went to a group just last week for the first time, for a long time, for a while. They'd not been involved. And their comment was, I had forgotten, I think I'll read it. I had forgotten what small group looks like. I'd forgotten that people would encourage me in my job and be praying for me throughout the week. And it was wonderful. Many of us are exhausted coming out from the pandemic. There's so much to do in life, isn't there? And maybe we get tired more quickly just because of all the emotion that's been around in these last 2 years. And it's tricky to schedule in something and commit to it. It's really difficult. But I'd love to gently challenge that for all of us this morning. Because we really believe that sometimes it's the long, slow, unglamorous thing of commitment to a group like that, which is where the transformation happens. It happens in living rooms, it happens in kitchens, it happens in coffee shops, it happens in small groups as we do life together. And so we are going to be contending for community, friends. That's what we're going to do. We're going to choose it. We're going to decide in our diaries. We're going to make space, and we're also doing a lot of other things just to help support this. At the present, we're redeveloping our pastoral care system. It's been a tricky 2 years, and we've been really challenged in that. We're increasing our leadership training and small group worship leaders training, etc., etc. And we've got lots of other ideas of how to do that. But this is all so that we can contend for good rich family life together. Okay, let's go. So that was the first thing, contending for community. And then John is going to take us into the next and the last.
It's amazing how different Anna and I are. So I write pretty much word by word just because I have to, or else I go off on tangents. Anna doesn't say anything that was down, but loads of other stuff, which is amazing. Every time I'm amazed. Like, thank you. Yeah. So the first one, I didn't know it was mean that, but it is because my notes say it is. Anyway, so we are contending for community, and we long to discuss that with you and work that through with you. We're excited about it. And the second one is cultivating transformation. Cultivating transformation. I have a little giggle in me because we worked a long time to try and get the beginning words to start with C. And hopefully that makes them more memorable, at least to Anna and I, if not others. But there's also an intentionality in those words because they're kind of action words. Contending is to struggle for. It's to choose even when it's hard. And cultivating is this like work of preparing, of getting something ready. And of course, it's mostly used with gardening and agriculture. And it's language that Jesus uses all the time. And there's a reason for this, because, sometimes God changes things in a moment, an instant breakthrough. I have a few stories in my own life like that. Maybe you do in yours, like instant breakthrough. It just occurs, some change, some freedom. But mostly, transformation happens over a gradual, slow time. It's usually something that takes work and preparation. Now, I've got a little example. We've tried growing veg to various degrees of success in our garden for the last 2 years. I don't think we've had anything from it, have we? Maybe a little bit. But what someone does, it might be someone in the room, we've never found out who it is. Every April Fool's Day, they put in like shop-bought carrots. And so it looks like it's worked, and we love whoever's done that. Thank you. It's happened a few times in a row. But this just marks that sometimes there is that instant change with God, and we pray for that, and we long for that. But on the whole, transformation is gradual and slow. Another example, if you want to learn to run a marathon, which I know some of you do, what you don't do is wake up tomorrow and run 26 miles. Like if you've done no training, you just don't do that. It would be impossible. Even if we gave you a great pep talk, even if we got the whole church praying for you, you wouldn't make it. You might die. But if you want to run a marathon, you would wake up tomorrow and you'd run a mile, maybe. Then on Tuesday, you would maybe run 2 miles. Then Wednesday, I'd say have a rest. And Thursday, have another rest. And build up to the next week when you have another go at a mile. And 2 miles, and over months and months and for me, years, it becomes 5 miles and 6 miles. And one day, and I don't know if I've got the discipline for this, apparently you can get up to 26 miles and even longer. It becomes within your capacity if you train for it. And it's true of musicians, it's true of artists, the same is true with following Jesus. So transformation is this internal stuff in us. It's joy, it's peace, it's hope, it's the good things we long for. It's also external. And God, all the way through the Bible, is blessing people so that they can bless others. It's always to give away. Transformed people transform places. And that's what we're going for. Transform people who transform places. And so as we gather and grow as community, everything that Anna said in point 1 and everything that was in the notes she didn't say as well, all those things. And the thing, it was great. We're to then go into the workplace and the world and the streets and homes and be partners with God, bringing salt and light into a broken world that needs healing. What does cultivating transformation mean for us this year? Well, 2 areas we just want to hone into that just keep us up at night, really. And one is around compassion. Compassion. Now, we've used that word earlier from Jesus. But 1 in every 16 verses in the Bible refer to poverty and injustice and God's concern for both of those. A verse that constantly plays in my mind is when Paul is being sent out to plant churches. All the letters of the New Testament you read often from Paul. And the parting message to Paul was this. All they asked was that we should continue to remember the poor, the very thing I'd been eager to do all along. So it's like, yeah, do this and do that and have a go at this and set up that group and this thing. But continue to remember the poor. That's all that we're asking of you, Paul. And that's so important. It's on God's heart, and it's always been on our heart as a church. Well, the landscape is different post-COVID. We all know that. And some of the ways we expressed this value 2 years ago as Vineyard 53 just aren't possible now. However, there's new ways emerging to serve our community, which we're incredibly excited about. Now, it's not all ironed out. Is ironing out the metaphor? That wasn't on my notes. Over this season, we'll highlight 2 or 3 ways or initiatives or projects which we as a church can kind of join together in to pray for that will make a difference in our region. Now, of course, there'll always be a dozen one-offs that we do, and we'll continue to support other churches and charities, and there'll always be things that you guys kind of want to see birth, that we want to help those things birth. But we'll also aim to have 2 or 3 just initiatives that we can all just enter into, hopefully. And we'll put together a clear strategy of how that might happen. As I say, it's not all ironed out yet. It may be restarting the base or a similar expression for those of you who are aware of that. That was like a cafe-style gathering where people would come and then additional help would be offered. And we could help people into mental health stuff or debt stuff, so on. It could be in the debt advice arena. So we just have an open door at the moment. And in a time of just potential great need, as energy bills are going up and prices rise and all the taxes rise, all that kind of stuff, we have an opportunity to work with a local debt advice centre that's already set up but is overwhelmed by the numbers coming in. And so grab me if that's something that excites you. We're just kind of weighing that up at the moment. It could be extending move in, move on, and beginning to store more things and looking at space where we can store more things to give away to those being rehoused and in particular need. And we're weighing up other partnerships and projects at the moment too. So just watch this space. But I'd love you personally to ask God, just would you speak to me about your heart for compassion? Would you put that in my mind? Would you put that in my prayers? And I just know that he will. And the final part of this is people finding purpose. We came into this year with a real burden to try and do what we could to help people find their gifting and their calling, just to be equipped to thrive in the workplace or in education if you're there, or in politics, like everywhere, every place. And so this is something, again, we'll focus on at different points in the year through Sundays, through particular groups, and so look out for those things. Areas that come to mind in here just involve investing more into North East Wales and Cafe Issa, like we've mentioned. Want to make sure they've got the equipment and the resources and the time for that to thrive. And it also involves investing in the next generation, like our kids and our youth. So important. And there's ways that we can see them thrive by investing in those guys as well. So these areas that we're talking about, we feel will bring strength. When we had the staff team and we were talking about what's the words God's giving you as a sense for this season, and someone just said stronger. And I think a lot of what we're talking about today is about bringing strength, is helping us to be stronger as a church as we move into the 9th year. So we're excited about these things. We'll continue to do the other things as well, but we'll put like a pedal on these 2 areas, contending and cultivating. Let's be a people who are marked by vision. And so again, think about the areas of your life. Let's, ask God, can I have a vision for my home, for my workplace? But then if Vineyard 53 is your church, do go on a journey and pray about these things. What barriers might you have to overcome when we're talking about contending for community or cultivating transformation? What could be the next step for you or for us. I think it's going to mean embracing generosity with our time and our resources to see the vision walked out. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a couple of weeks' time as well.